Greetings, YouTube. Today I'd like to talk about the Alluria Publishing supplement Indigo Ice. This is for their Cerulean Seas setting. Now, I've spoken about Cerulean Seas itself and its psionic supplement in the past, and Alluria Publishing's work also. And I've always been very impressed with what they produce. I'm a fan of aquatic environments, and the Cerulean Sea setting is one-stop shopping if you want to put a completely aquatic campaign in a Pathfinder universe, or you just want to add aquatic elements to a more traditional Pathfinder setting. But the Cerulean Seas setting is designed for a world that is almost exclusively aquatic. There are very small sections of land left, but everything else is aquatic, so almost all of the campaign is going to take place beneath the waves. Because of this, I think there's a good bulk of the campaign setting which may not be applicable to your more traditional Pathfinder game, because most people are not going to run an exclusively aquatic game. That's fine. But if you want to, everything you need is in that Cerulean Seas supplement. Go check it out. But the Indigo Ice supplement deals with the Arctic environments in an aquatic world. Because of that, because you have ice floating up there on the surface, you have more of an opportunity to have surface structures than you would in a world that's pretty much all drowned and there's very little land left. And because Arctic environment our Arctic and Antarctic are very mysterious places, lands of mystery. There's a reason Lovecraft chose the Antarctic as to place one of his most famous stories in. I think you can get more play out of this supplement than you could possibly get out of the Cerulean Seas campaign setting itself, because it's going to be a lot easier to drop the mysterious, exotic elements you'll find in this supplement into an existing campaign, because the Arctic or the Antarctic are already mysterious and exotic locations. So the player characters aren't going to know what you're going to throw at them to begin with. So being able to do a lot of stuff under the ice, I think, adds a really nice dimension to your gaming possibilities. So let's go over what you've got here. Whoops, I'm clicking things I didn't mean to click here. Sorry. Preface, introduction, common terms, environmental basics, giving you an idea of what the Arctic environment is going to be like in this setting. Then we deal with the aquatic races you find in a polar environment. It covers the races that were dealt with in the original Cerulean Seas setting. And then it introduces some new races. Alluria Publishing is very good at that. We have the Ugluklik. There's a lot of very Inuit-sounding names in here, and I apologize if I am butchering them or I am insulting an Inuit who happen to hear me. And this is a little spindly, small race with these magnificent heads of hair and beard, which have a wonderful gnomish fey feel to them. And the visuals are very evocative. I like these guys. It's not just guys, but I mean, I like the presentation of this race. Then we have the Crystolics, which are a merfolk that very much evoke a fusion in my mind with water elementals. This ethereal, flowing beauty, and they're known as being very social and being very, they're good at diplomacy, and they're strong characters. They have a great immunity to fear and despair effects. So they have this regal, that's the word I'm looking for, bearing about them, which I thought was well done. We have ice elves. I gotta say, do we need more elves? But if you like elves, here you go, ice elves. The Taluljuk Ningan, which I, again, probably saying that wrong, which are a race based off of the beluga whales, large muscular creatures, which the illustration for some reason makes me laugh every time I see it, because they have them wearing these little seashell bikini tops, which just makes me laugh. But I like the idea of anthro races, and having a merfolk race based off the beluga I think was quite well done and interesting. And then we have the squawk, a fully anthropomorphic penguin race, which is awesome. Just cool. Who doesn't like penguins? And a penguin race is just great. I think that's going to have legs. Okay, anthro legs. In any campaign, I would dump these guys in every campaign now that I know they exist. I would put them everywhere. They would be in every campaign. I'd find a way to stick them in desert campaigns. Then you have the Thanor. And these guys are the best of the races. They're an anthro walrus race. And that's just cool. Walruses, big tusks, big burly, large creatures. Strong, not too smart, but just cool. Again, you can put these things in a lot of different places because they're not necessarily intimately tied to the underwater world. They have legs, so very well done. Excellent. Then we have a section on aquatic polar classes, how to adapt existing classes to the polar setting. And we have a full-blown class, the Angakuk. I don't know, it's Angakkuq. So I'm saying, no clue how to say that. This is a divine caster, charisma-based, prepares spells, and it really evokes, in my mind, shamanistic magic with an Inuit flavor. They have up to 6 level spells. They have an animal companion. Well, it's not even an animal. They have a companion that they build, they animate out of organic material. So animal and plant parts they find and they imbue with a spirit, and then has abilities based on that. And I think that's cool. I like that aspect, the animating the life around you to be your companion and your assistant. Then we have prestige classes, and again, I'm not a huge fan of prestige classes. There's a cryomancer and a cryokineticist in here, so an arcane caster with an ice theme and a sonic manifester with an ice theme. Both fit the campaign idea quite nicely, and I think could have some applications elsewhere. And then they have one, and I apologize, the name escapes me, but it's either a martial prestige class that you take an oath to defend the freedom of the other races. Basically, anyone who is enslaved or who has broken the oath of your order is to be hunted down. They're marked men, essentially. And I like the idea of orders. I really do. And because it's not restricted to a single alignment like it is in a paladin, it has a little more flexibility. I like that. And the neat thing about this is when you become a member of this order, you get a symbiote placed inside you. So you have this symbiotic organism living inside you, which allows you to exude ice armor and ice weapons. Though the weapon at hand, I think, was a sickle. That seems weird to me, because I don't think you want slashing weapons in an underwater environment. I definitely would, if I were in an underwater environment, I want piercing weapons. Piercing weapons are the best choice for underwater environments. Slashing and bludgeoning weapons are far less effective in an underwater environment. But that's my only real critique of the prestige class. I quite liked it. The idea of having a symbiote and being a member of a martial order that's out there to right the wrongs of the world. Good idea. Then we have Frostcraft, which deals with aquatic materials, weapons, feats, spells, and some magic items. They introduced something in here called this is kind of a silly name, Fizzle Pop firearms. Essentially firearms that are pneumatic based. They use an alchemical substance called Fizzle Pop, which allows you to pressurize a chamber with air to fire a projectile. From pistol to rifle, and I think they had some harpoon size scale, like siege weapon style things for hunting. And I like this idea. I think this can also have applications outside this setting, because if you would like the idea of muskets but don't like the idea of there being gunpowder or smoke powder in your world, which could potentially be used in more real-world ways that make you nervous, maybe using this substance would allow you to add in muskets and firearms into your campaign with a little more control, a little more flavor of the exotic, a little less connection to reality, and hopefully less likely to bring some of the problems that firearms can bring into a campaign. So I think that was quite well done. The illustrations are nice as well. I'm a weapons illustration kind of guy. And then we have a section on Indigo ice setting itself, some specific things like the gods, racial histories, things like that, which are required if you're going to use this as a complete part of your Cerulean Seas setting, or could be used as exotic flavor for a more traditional Pathfinder game. Then we have the Bestiary, and the Bestiary has some nice monsters in here, and because you're dealing with an environment it's almost entirely aquatic, they've adapted some of the more traditional real-world animals like the orca, bears, animals you find in a real-world Arctic environment, and made them a little more aquatic in some ways and a little more fantastical, which makes sense. But because of this, I think it's a nice collection here of chimeras in the sense of fused creatures, which I've always liked. The Greeks really had a great flavor for that, and I've enjoyed them in fantasy games. For example, the classic owlbear, which you could adapt to an aquatic Arctic environment very easily with a polar bear and an Arctic owl. And the best part of this, however, is the illustrations. They knocked the ball out of the park with the illustrations in this bestiary. Very, very well done. They're evocative, they're interesting. I just like them. I'm looking at them and I'm like, hey, that's a really cool illustration of a monster. It was just very well done. And they had a nice enough realistic feel to them to give them a sense of solidity in some ways for me. There's an illustration of a seal in here that looked very well. It was excellent. I mean, this seal could have been from an illustration of a science book for kids or something. And because of that grounding in reality, that kind of bleeds over into a number of the other illustrations for the bestiary, and I really like that. So, if you hadn't figured out by now, I recommend the Indigo Ice setting, both for a Cerulean Sea campaign and as an addition to a more traditional Pathfinder game. And again, because it's dealing with an Arctic environment, which is probably going to exist in every Pathfinder game you're going to run, because most are roughly our world and our world environments, I think that you can dump these elements into your campaign more easily than maybe a full-blown Cerulean Sea campaign, which is going to be a lot of buy-in for a full aquatic game. This is a better way, if you'll pardon the pun, to test the waters on using an aquatic setting.